How's it going, sir?
It's going pretty good, Jay.
If you could take a moment, tell the viewers who you are and what exactly do you do for Modus?
I'm Richard Bullington-McGuire, and I'm principal architect here at Modus Create. The biggest contributions I've made have been in leading engagements with either new customers or repeat customers where we're like opening up a large, potential amount of work. I have been writing templates for us to produce consulting in sort of a productized fashion. I also help coach our teams on kind of how to be a good Modite and provide oversight on some of the more critical contracts. I sometimes get called in to do firefighting. We do a lot of pre-sales work also.
You've been with us for 8 years now, right?
Just about. That's more than 7.
We're just going to call it 8 for now, yes.
Yeah.
And the best way I could describe you is like you can range from someone who is taking a wrecking ball to an existing architecture to kind of pave the way to something new, to someone who is laying down the plans for scalability and maintainability, and all the way down to like a surgical type of I can envision you in the surgery room with like utensils and scalpels and stuff.
That's kind of the path of the versatilist. Okay, so I don't remember who told me about this several years ago, but there are some people who are generalists and they know a little bit about everything, but maybe they don't go very deep. There are some people who are specialists and they know everything about their own subject matter area. But the versatilist takes some of the benefits of having a generalist, like, oh, you do know a lot about a lot of things. But when necessary, a versatilist can dive all the way down as deep as required and figure out what's going on at a low level, and then also bring it up to that high level strategic context. So that's really my my best bag of tricks is being able to do that.
What have been those experiences like, kind of having to scale from either super hyper technical all the way up to like the business level?
Yeah, that's one of the things I really enjoy. So because I've started my own for-profit business. I've started nonprofits. I've been on the boards of nonprofits. I've like had a pretty diverse background outside of being a pure technologist. So, and I really enjoy all of those aspects. I like running companies. I like helping people fix the problems that they have with companies. But I also like helping get to the bottom of really difficult technical problems. When you have a company that's an e-commerce company and they have one day of the year that is their busiest, that's a really difficult challenge to solve. And if you fail, you're going to lose customers, or you may even lose the trust of the entire industry that you're working with if you do it repeatedly, because reputation matters with that sort of thing.
One of the most important tenets of Modus's culture is always learning and sharing what you've known. And it's been an absolute joy to watch you be a mentor to various people. Can you think about one moment that was like like your most proudest moment when working with someone?
I really enjoy working with folks who are kind of climbing up their way through their own learning journey. So I'm thinking about working very closely with someone we hired as an intern originally, Andrew Owen. And he'd worked on various internal projects when he was an intern, and then once we actually hired him, it's like, all right, well, what are you going to do? Right. Okay. So we ended up getting a wonderful project with a large biotech company in the transportation demand management space. So we had to take, following on one of these analysis engagements, which kind of gave us a template for doing some of our most advanced work in this area, we ended up with an implementation project. So he'd had a lot of varying experience with the smaller projects, but this was the first project where he was billable and he had to really make sure that he could provide a lot of value for the customer. And I coached him on some QA automation work that we did. He'd already been working on some of the QA automation stuff and exploring this, and I think he even blogged about it before he was on this engagement. But this was really like the first time when it was like, okay, now you're going to have to really put these skills to use. And he did great. The test suite that he built did what it was supposed to, and the customer was really happy. The program that we were working on for them helped them save tens of millions of dollars, and get people out of single passenger cars and biking and walking and taking transit. It was a really great project to work on all the way around. So he really rose to the occasion there, and we knew after that project that he was suitable to put onto demanding work. That he was full-fledged Modite at that point. So I really liked that.
I want to rewind the clock all the way back.
Okay, sure.
What got you into technology, sir?
I really, really liked video games when I was a young kid, and my parents, in the 70s, bought I think it was a Magnavox Odyssey game console. It was a very early game console.
Is that the one where you had to put the colors on the television, the vinyl see-through?
Maybe. I mean, I was really young at that point. It was I was certainly not even 8. Okay, and we ended up getting a Atari 2600, which I still have a little standalone Atari 2600 joystick with 8 games loaded into it that I just hooked up to my modern TV again this week. And I played through Adventure. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember which way to go here. I'm like, it's surprising how deep that stuff goes sometimes. I was at school, Montessori school in Northern Virginia in 1982, and they got an Apple II computer. I was immediately taken with that. So I read, eventually, later that year, I think our family got an Apple II Plus, and I read the reference manuals from cover to cover. I'm like, wow, look at the schematics for the motherboard here. This is oh, this is how you do some of the basic stuff. Here's some of the assembly language. Oh, that's hard. Maybe I'll stick to basic for now. So, I did a lot of work on the school's Apple II, typing programs in from magazines. So I spent a lot of time playing on those Apples. I played a lot of games on the Apple, but I also did programming. I wrote a D&D character generator, for when I was a young teen, which I may still have a copy of that somewhere. I've been doing programming since 1982.
Wow.
So
it's a long road.
Yeah, it is a long road.
I didn't know that you had started technology and got inspired through video games.
Yeah.
I actually had a very similar experience, and what I learned as I got older and as our generation started to reflect nostalgically on our early years is that video games have impacted people in so many ways. I remember just losing my imagination, or getting lost in my imagination to some of these older, for me, although I played Atari, I was a little too young to appreciate it. With the Nintendo Entertainment System, it was a vastly different experience. And even today, I can still play those old games and allow my mind to just kind of drift. And I still find it amazing that I can still use my imagination. What was it like for you growing up, having your first job? What did you do for money for the very first time?
So, when I was a teenager, I liked computers, but I also liked art. So, I got my first job because I think my mother noticed that the clown service that was attending the cheap pizza night we were going to at Shakey's.
Red nose.
Red nose, yeah, big shoes, the whole work. Okay, so there was that they. I don't know how she learned, but she learned that they were looking for help. I think she must have chatted up one of the owners of this thing, because they typically had a balloon animal clown and a face painting clown. Okay. So I had done face painting, as a volunteer activity in high school, multiple times. And I was like, hey, I could do that. I went to this guy's main place of business. He was an optician, so it was optician by day, clown by night. Okay. The clown part of that, I really consider that to be my first job. Okay, 'cause that's what I really got it. And And the thing that I really take with me from that is that it's important for people to like feel an emotional connection and have like enjoyment of what they're doing. And if you don't seem like you are enthusiastic or enjoying what you're doing, even if you're providing a very valuable service for someone, they're not going to like it. They're not going to appreciate it. That actually had a big boost to my social confidence too. You know, if I was away from my high school, which was not the friendliest environment for me, and, you know, I could go out, you know, and go to some event where there were people I didn't know, and I'm like, hey, have a balloon animal. It's like instant icebreaker. Okay, and I'm like, wow, cool, thanks.
You've been with us quite a while, most of the company's lifetime, and you've transitioned from being at the office most of the time to working remotely. And as we move forward in time, that concept of letting folks know that we are essentially a mostly remote workforce, right? We have 200 Modites in 42 different countries, 3 offices, Costa Rica, Romania, and the US. And you're only like, what, 30-minute bike ride?
Yeah, I'm a 30-minute car ride from here, and if I ride my bike the whole way out, it's an hour and 20 minutes, which is a nice ride. So 17 and a half miles, which is, you know, it's good.
So you get to understand, you get to experience and enjoy the balance between coming into the office and having some social experience versus working from home.
Yeah.
What does your work at home environment look like?
It varies a lot. So I do not, I'm one of the folks who does not tend to stay put. And I like being able to move around in my house and on my property. So, you know, this past week I've been working a lot from the hammock in my backyard,
Very
which
nice.
I rigged up with, with power and with several different caddies in it to hold a drink, to hold a phone, to hold, you know, a tablet, you know, and then I prop my laptop, you know, on my knees and type away and move.
So you're like laying back?
Yeah.
Dude, please tell me we have a photo of you.
Oh yeah, yes. There's.
I would love to see that.
This is QB roll, okay? Because I've got some photo proof of this, some video proof.
Very cool.
But you know, I also work a lot at my kitchen table. You know, especially like in the middle of the day when my kids are out of the house, like that. You know, it's just it's nice to be there and like have be able to you know really like just zoom in and get stuff done and still have ready access to, you know, to snacks and water and so on. So like I like that. I work on my living room couch a lot. Sometimes I work in like in my basement. You know, I haven't had a dedicated home office set up for I guess since 2008 was the last time I had a dedicated home office set up.
You work from home, you work from the office, you work from your hammock.
I work from anywhere.
Anywhere, coffee shops. I remember at one point I met you at a coffee shop close to where you live. What is the experience like for you working with people, you know, in multiple areas? You know, like what type of tools do you enjoy the most in collaborating with them?
So I really like Zoom. I mean, video conference with screen sharing is really the best you can get without hopping on a plane today. And
we can take the knowledge that we've gained, the general principles, the battle scars and lessons learned, you know, from our engagements, and we can then step outside that code base, you know, without referring back to it directly. That's really important. And, you know, build something that has a similar functionality.
We've used a lot of them. They're all terrible in different ways. So far, Zoom is the least terrible. And I guess I should offer the disclaimer that I am a Zoom shareholder just by buying some in the public market. So, you know.
Oh, that's why we moved to Zoom.
That's what. No. But like, I really like the video conference stuff. I like being able to play with that. So I discovered that there were a virtual green screen ability recently.
That's right. You punked me a while back.
Oh yeah. So then the thing is, I think I punked you with the fully virtual green screen one where it just uses the processor to edit your background out that time. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And so when I was in here, I took some pictures of our office environment so that, you know, I could make it look like I was sitting in the office. I'd used the green screen facility to to have one of their cars, like a very fancy, car in the background. And the first thing they said when they came on the line was, "Nice background." So, and that also speaks to the clowning thing. You want to make people laugh a little bit.
Yeah, kind of break the ice.
Exactly.
That's awesome. You've seen people come, you've seen people go. What are like the top 2 or 3 core tenets of Modus's culture that you really value the most?
So I hear you and Pat say all the time, "Oh, we run our company like kind of like an open source project," and in many ways, I think that's true. And we do take the best parts of that, where there's the meritocracy of, like you commit, you produce, and you'll be recognized for it. At the same time, don't be a jerk is very much held as a big principle here. The push to help people be active, visible, and relevant, which we've been working on for years now, which is really comes naturally to the founders of the company and a lot of the early folks in the company, like Grigor, who's one of the folks who's been here longer than I have. You got together with him because of your mutual interest in being active, visible, and relevant in the community. So, I was doing an interview today, and the person I was interviewing in Costa Rica was saying, like, is the company going to be supportive of, my kind of learning journey and professional development? And I was like, oh, yes, absolutely. You're going to love it. Okay. Assuming you make the cut.
Right.
The people who can submit conference proposals or write a book or write articles either for our blog or for other publications get a lot of encouragement. So it's one of those things where this is definitely the most encouraging environment that I've seen in my career. Like, there are places that tolerate that, but outside of academia or innovation research lab, I can imagine that it might be good. Like, this is as good as it gets as far as that goes. So, the company is very supportive of people's learning journeys. And I think it stems in part because we've had some very diverse learning journeys. We have folks who are entirely self-taught technologists. We have folks who have multiple graduate degrees.
Right.
And we all have a mutual respect based on working together. Okay. It's one of those things where, the founders and early folks in the company bring in other folks who they would like to work with ultimately. Like, yes, you are competent to do the job, but if we do not like to work together mutually, then it is unlikely that you will stick around. And like, there are a lot of folks that we've been working with for years and years now that we just we were like, oh yes, I get to do a project with this person. I'm so happy. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
And it happens, like, I have that reaction, and I'm always like super happy when I see other people having that reaction of like, oh yes, I get to work with, with Richard, or I get to work with Jay, or I get to work with Grigor, or I get to work with Facundo. Yeah,
Marcos.
Exactly. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, like, it's just a joy to come into some of these things and be like, wow, I saw what these folks did on the last thing we worked on together.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what happens here, because we are going to crush it with the client.
I find it incredible that some of our folks have been with us 3, 4, 5 years, and I maybe have been lucky to meet them once, if that.
Yeah.
Like Facundo is one of those individuals who's an amazing contributor. Marcos is an amazing contributor. I've never met those individuals.
Pat met Facundo in Costa Rica. You came up to Costa Rica at one point.
Yeah.
But I've never met Marcos either. There's a lot of folks that I haven't met. It's one of those things, we're big, it's a global company,
Right.
And you get like to the 200 person-ish mark.
Yep.
It's just the size where it's hard to know everyone. Like, I don't know everyone in the organization, and that's a tough thing to wrestle with. Like, there are a lot of organizations where once it gets to about 50 people, like, I don't feel comfortable there anymore. that's happened to me in my career multiple times. But like we've been able to do things better overall, so that I think that like parts of our core culture are abiding as we scale, and that's a big challenge. I mean, I've intentionally put, as I've had a break between billable projects, I've put a lot of time into being on top of the discussions in our Slack and making sure that I inject, my 2 cents and kind of my kind of contribution to Modus culture, whether that's clowning around or whether that's saying people, hey, you should think about that another way, or like, hey, there's a red flag, like don't do it like that.
It's a licensing issue.
That's issue. Right. Yep, like the conflict of interest.
Yes, sir.
That was my today. I don't know if you saw that. You just have to be careful about a lot of this stuff because it can bite you.
We work long hours. We share very common DNA as far as, geeking out, doing deep dives, staying out late, clubs. What do you do for fun?
I like to bike a lot. So, I bike with my family. I bike just for exercise. There's like a few sports that I learned that I enjoyed, in my like late teens and early 20s. And like cycling is the one that is most accessible that I can do, all the time.
So, dude, thank you very much, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this time.
Yeah, this has been fun.
It's quite a special opportunity to connect with this young man.
I just hope that the mics and the cameras don't crap out time.